Hi, my name is Beth Green, and I am the founder of theinnerrevolution.org and the host of Inside Out, The Inner Revolution, which is an internet radio program on voiceamerica.com. And as you can see, I'm really interested in the inner revolution because everything that I'm doing now, the videos and blogs and my radio show are all about it. Well, that's easy because the inner revolution is a huge topic. It's what's happening. And it's also something that I believe needs cohesiveness and it needs to be galvanized in a positive direction. Now, let me explain very briefly about what the inner revolution is. And I say very briefly because everybody tells me you can't have too long a video on YouTube. People will not watch. So my whole concern about this video is not what I say, but how quickly I could say it. All right, so please bear with me for a while and don't hang up yet. So the last time I did a video for YouTube, it was on the inner revolution, confronting our gods and freeing ourselves. And by gods, I mean everything that we make holy, that we can't question, whether it's our parents' word or it's our friends, it's our social norms, it's our religious belief system, it's our political party, whatever it is that we have been brought up to not question. And we have to, or even if it's what's in our heads, our own opinions. Oh my God, how often do we refuse to question our own opinions? So that was what that video was about. It was about the revolution. We have to start by questioning everything, everything, everything. Well, today I want to not talk about what we're fighting against. I want to start talking about what we're starting for. And in fact, I'd like to do a series of videos about the inner revolution, what we're fighting for. So just to start with, I want to give you an overall sense of what I'm talking about. Well, the first thing I'm talking about is overcoming hierarchy. That means that we are getting out of the old traditions, listening to the people we've always listened to, and just being kind of passive in our world. And that's already happening all the time. And social media is a perfect vehicle for that. Social media, the internet, it's amazing. Because it used to be that we only had a couple of voices of what the news was, and that was it, unless you happened to read an underground newspaper. But today, you just go on the internet, you can get information from any society, any country, any perspective, any point of view. Oh my God, we are inundated with information and different opinions, and we can speak too. You know, anybody can put up a video on YouTube who can just follow the directions. So there is already a revolution taking place in the old hierarchical structure of society, and it's not just here, it's international. Anywhere that people have access to a cell phone, to the internet, people are getting Facebook, people are getting information, they're talking to each other. Well, that's an amazing revolutionary change. We've never had that in history before, where we could all talk to each other and start questioning, supporting each other. So that's really exciting. But that is not enough to be the inner revolution as far as I'm concerned, because what we have to do is topple our old ways of thinking, not spread them more on Facebook. See, if we're already in separation and prejudice, and we write to our friends and we put stuff on Facebook, and people pass that out, well, that's revolutionary in the sense that everybody has a chance to do that and speak for themselves. But are we, when we do that, actually questioning what we're thinking? Are we taking a look at our beliefs and seeing whether or not they're working? Are we looking honestly at ourselves? So you see, for me, and this is what I'm supporting, the inner revolution is about some very basic changes in the way we see ourselves, one another, and society, and the process of living itself. One of those changes is that we need to be focused on oneness. Now, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more today, but I just want to put it out kind of in a condensed form. Oneness is like getting over the ego way of thinking. It's about me, I have to protect myself, it's about my nation, it's about my race, it's about my religion, it's about my gender, it's whatever. So we're really being called to look at the world as a whole, to look at humanity as a whole, to even look at the animals who are in our lives, and to begin to change into a place of oneness and not separation. As I say, I'm going to talk about that more today. The second thing that is absolutely a crucial part of this inner revolution is accountability. We got to get it. We're responsible. we're doing it, we got to undo it. Oh, yes, we can say Monsanto is spreading, the GMOs, as seeds, but we can use them or not use them. We can eat it or not eat it. It's up to us, you see. So the whole idea that there's a them and an us, and they have all the power and we don't, well, that's got to go. What we have to see is, hey, what are we doing? We can't always blame the tobacco companies for the addiction to cigarettes and for cancer. We have to look at whether or not we're smoking. I mean, I used to smoke, and I'll tell you, I did not need a Surgeon's General report to know that smoking was bad for my health. I ignored it anyway, but I knew darn well that smoking was bad for my health because I could feel it in my lungs. So everything that we do, you see, we have to be aware now that we're accountable for everything. Everything we think, everything we do, everything we say collectively as a whole community, as a society, and everything we do as individuals. Oh my God, there's no better example of that than confronting climate change. Aren't we actually beginning to wake up that we can't just keep on using the Earth's resources and burning fossil fuels the way we have? Oh my God, it's coming home. I hate the weather. Okay, so we all have accountability, how we impact one another emotionally, spiritually, and materially. And the third absolutely essential tenet of the inner revolution is mutual support. We got to get over ourselves. We have to stop just going after what we need and recognize that we are all happier when we live in a more healthy society. And I have a lot to say about that. But you're not going to hear any of that today because I just wanted to summarize that. I want to tell you 2 more points about the inner revolution, and then I want to get to 1 point about oneness. And I could talk about oneness for a month. No, don't worry, I'm not going to do that now. The other thing we need is self-awareness and healing. We can't make an inner revolution if we're not looking at ourselves. Now, when I say ourselves, I just don't mean me. I don't mean just my marriage. I don't mean just my family, just my town. I mean my society, my nation, my religion, my world. It's all mine, see, and I'm accountable for all of that, all those levels. Let's not get exhausted thinking about it. We can handle this. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But what I mean is we have to be self-aware. So we have to notice what we are doing. Oh, yeah, okay, so maybe it's been traditional for us to kill whales at sundown. Well, maybe it's time for us to stop doing it, even if it is traditional, because we can't afford to be killing the whales anymore. That's an example. You see what I'm saying? We have to look at everything and become self-aware as a society. What are we teaching our children? What are we doing to our health? How are we living? What are we teaching ourselves to do, whether it's drinking or wearing high-heeled shoes? This is one of my campaigns. Or any of the other crazy things that we do. We need to look at that, whether we're spreading racist and prejudiced ideas about other people. We got to look at that whole thing. So self-awareness is about the whole. And self-awareness is also about me personally. It's like, okay, yes, I am a little testy. I do have a tendency to get angry sometimes. Or, gee, I do play the victim. Or whatever it is that my personal pathology happens to be. And I have to own it. And I have to start getting accountable for it. I've got to be self-aware. I've got to start learning where this stuff came from. And that leads to that final point, which is to make an inner revolution. We have to be well enough to change. Well, if we've been doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over for centuries, for the millennium, why have we been doing it that way? How is it that we can change? I can't tell you how many times I've seen people who genuinely want to stop drinking and they can't, and they don't even know what's driving them, you see. So change, it takes more than an idea, although the idea is very important. And it takes support, and it takes deep healing. Honestly, humanity is severely traumatized. All you have to do is look around. See, I've been a counselor for over 35 years. I've listened to story after story. I know that behind the facade of some of the most successful people is a lot of pain and a lot of trauma. People come from very dysfunctional backgrounds because their parents came from dysfunctional backgrounds, and so on, and so on, and so on. So whether you were born in a war zone, or you were born in New York City, which sometimes can be a war zone. I was born in New York City. Or whether you were born privileged or you were born poor, everybody has a story of trauma, emotional trauma, physical trauma, sexual trauma, social trauma. We all have it. We get these ideas about how we should be. Oh, I should be more kind. I should be more compassionate. But I feel like, I can't help it. Well, that's because when I was 3 days old, my mother accidentally suffocated me, and I was only saved by a squirrel who happened to come by. You see, stuff like that has happened to all of us along the way because we all have dysfunctional parents and families and schools, and some of us were also beaten in our schools and went to church and were told that we were sinners and all this stuff that happened to us. Well, we get pretty messed up, and it's very difficult to change our reactivity. So that takes healing, healing, healing. See, that's why at the innerrevolution.org we actually do a lot of healing work. We do training in new kinds of thinking and consciousness, and I do videos, and I've got a book called Living with Reality that if everybody could do it, the world would change. But nobody even wants to read it, much less do it. But it takes more than that. It also takes healing. We have to not only change what's in our heads, we also have to change what's in our hearts, and really good counseling and healing can help with that. So the self-awareness and the healing are absolutely crucial for us to change as a world, especially those of us who are trying to change first. See, once oneness and accountability and mutual support are just like popular and trendy, it's easy to do it. Well, I should never say it's easy, but it's a lot easier because that's kind of the propaganda we're going to get on the radio, and that's what our friends are going to be doing, and we don't have to stand up to anybody. We can just go along with the crowd. Oh, yes, we're all on the oneness now, see? Well, and I love that. I mean, that's a great place to be, but we're not there yet, not as a world. Oh, my God, we are so far from that. I mean, we still accept so much as being normal. The oppression of women, the use, the exploitation of children, the exploitation of men, killing ourselves for our egos, all of that stuff that we do socially and find perfectly normal and acceptable. Well, it's very hard to stand up to that when we don't have the support. I want to come back to one point about that support before I go back to the major topic, which I won't talk about too long. Okay. Our world is changing because of that social media and because of the internet. As I was saying, because you can get support. It is absolutely astounding to me that today a child can stand up and say, I'm the valedictorian of my school and I'm gay and I want to talk about that. And the school can say, no, you can't. And somebody's going to hear about it. On, say, Facebook or some way it's going to pass around and somebody's going to hear about it and somebody's going to do something about it and somebody's going to come in and say, hey, I'm with you. It didn't used to be like that. You see, when I was a young person, I was a rebel. I was a revolutionary. I really wanted to see the world change, and I spoke up against everything that I saw that was hurtful and damaging and oppressive, and I had no support. None. I mean, I got expelled from college when I was 17. I was threatened with expulsion from elementary school when I was 9 years old. There was no support, guys, but now there is. You can see these transgender children are getting support. I mean, a couple of years ago, transgender was like, oh, some kind of weirdos, and now, oh my God, the gay rights, women's rights, prisoner rights. There's all kinds of people are getting support. We're supporting each other. That's fantastic. We don't need the kind of courage that we used to need before because we have some support. But when you talk about an inner revolution, you're talking about confronting everything that is sick and wrong and destructive. You are not going to have masses of people standing next to you saying, rah, rah, what a great idea. They say, oh, yes, your idea about confronting the Catholic Church was great, but what do you mean confronting the Protestant Church? Or what do you mean confronting Islam? Or what do you mean confronting Buddhism? Or what do you mean confronting atheism? See, whatever it is that people are stuck in. So it's like, oh, yes, yes, if you put out a video trashing somebody in very stern words, you're going to get people who hate you, but there's going to be people who are going rah, rah, rah. But if you stand up to everything, the way we think and the way we behave, you are going to be treading on everybody's toes. So let's say being an inner revolutionary may not make you the most popular person today, but there are lots of us out there who are carrying the seed of the inner revolution, who are doing parts of the inner revolution. What we need is to come together to support one another to do the inner revolution. So now I did promise you that I was going to talk a little bit about oneness, and I'm going to do that just for a few minutes because that is the first step in making an inner revolution. Now, let me tell you, there is so much in the world that needs to change that, you know, you could sit and cry if you read the news, right? From the way we treat animals to the way we treat the earth, to the way we incarcerate people, to, I mean, there is just no end to the hazing, to the football, to the concussion, to the, I can't tell you, mental illness. So we can see all of that, and it can feel so daunting. We say, oh, God, why even bother getting up out of bed? You know, this is way too hard. I can't even manage. You know, it's enough. All I can do is go to work every day, or take care of my kids, or pay the mortgage, or not pay the mortgage. So, but this is the great piece about the inner revolution. See, I haven't gotten to oneness yet, but I'm going to in a minute, I promise. The great thing about the inner revolution is that you only have to change one thing. Not everything. You have to change one thing. That's human consciousness. You see, doesn't that make it much more simple? Well, it really does. Because that means that if we go out and we start talking about oneness, accountability, and mutual support, when we start supporting one another, to support one another, to heal, and to be self-aware, it's amazing. They can go out and do it themselves. If they're working in the school system, I don't know how to change the school system. I don't need to know how to change the school system. I need to support the people who are rethinking the school system. Do you see? Who are looking at things from the perspective of oneness, accountability, and mutual support. All of a sudden becomes doable. All I need to do is help people understand what the inner revolution is, and then everybody goes and does it in wherever they are. See, and people come up with their own solutions, because that's the whole idea, isn't it? It's mutual support. We come together. We begin to look at each other as allies, as people who can support each other to change our world. And it's amazing. Things start happening in different spheres, and I can see it already. See, because I'm supporting our organization, the innerrevolution.org, and people are in different fields, and they're getting all kinds of ideas about what they can do. And it's fabulous, see, and I don't have to do all that. So you see, really, it's not as hard as it sounds. If we get it together to change the way we relate to ourselves and one another in the process of living, we are going to succeed in turning around human consciousness. If we turn around human consciousness, we can heal our world. Now, this brings us right back to the point that I was going to make in this video that I haven't made yet, which is about oneness. Now, oneness is real. All right. People may think it's a metaphysical hoo-ha. People may think that it's a spiritual platitude. I don't care what you think. It's what you feel. You see, we all know that oneness is real. What does it mean? Well, on one level, it means that we're one. We feel each other's feelings. We feel the suffering of one another. If we didn't feel one another's suffering, I would give up today. There's no motivation. That man or woman who beats that child looks into the face of that child and feels the pain that they are inflicting on that child. And it makes them sick. And then they go into denial because they can't face the reality of what they are doing. See, those societies that are very, very stratified are full of pain and shame because we know what we're doing. What do you think if you were a slaveholder, you know, in slave days in the U.S., don't you think it made you sick to walk by and see people that you knew or didn't know being beaten so you could have a new dress? Come on. We feel one another's feelings. And that's very visceral. When we're in the womb, we're part of our mother's. We're feeling her feelings, you see. When we're in family, we're so connected to each other. When we're in a couple, personally, when I can't sleep, I have to ask my husband, what's bothering you? It's almost always him. I pick up his feelings. Now, I'm a super sensitive person because that's my profession. I am an intuitive. But we all feel it. And I know that because as a counselor for over 35 years, I've been working with people who can remember, if they allow themselves, what was going on in their families when they were too young, when people thought they were too young to even understand what was going on, because they were picking it up intuitively, because they were connected. And whenever we're abusive to someone else, we feel their pain. You know why we have slaughterhouses and warriors and all of that? Because I don't want to go out there and do that. You think I would eat chicken if I actually had to kill it myself? Forget about it. See? Or, you know, we wouldn't go so fast off to war, a lot of us, if we were the ones who were going in there and actually walking in and machine gunning the child instead of dropping a bomb from some drone where we're so disconnected, we don't even know what we're doing. We don't have to look at the person we're hurting. We don't have to feel them, you see. So that's one level of oneness that's extremely important, that we actually feel one another's feelings because we are one, and I am certain of that. The other way that we are one is in the fabric of life, in the fabric of society. We are, you know, like the tapestry. We don't exist outside of the fabric of our society. So you just try to live your life with nobody else in it, and you will discover that nobody is cleaning the garbage off the street, and nobody is running the subway, or nobody is paving the road, or when you get to the hospital, there's nobody there. You see, it's absurd. Or, so, I mean, to think that we are really separate, it's absurd. It's just one of those ideas that we've been trained to think that we're separate. Yes, we are separate, but we are also one. See, it's that also part that, you know, we don't get, and that we're not taught, because that all goes back to the ego and to survival and to our number one and our parents who want, you know, all that stuff. So our world, you know, we realize now we are desperate. We cannot contain our problems anymore in a box and shove them and put them on a shelf. Years ago, there were people who were warning us about global warming, and most of us didn't listen because we said, oh, that's up there, or that problem is in the Arctic. Well, the problem is in the Arctic until the water is rising in, you know, your backyard. Right? And it's like, oh my God, the problem isn't in the Arctic, the problem is here. Or when your weather gets shitty and you say, I don't even know what to wear anymore. Or there's a tornado where there shouldn't be, or so on. You see, it's all coming home because we are one world. And we saw that so clearly with the issue of pollution, for example, the ozone layer disappearing. We had to do something collectively because these problems are collective. So many people really want to believe it's the Wild West. I happen to live in the Wild West. There's a lot of people here like that. So, you know, everybody is a gunslinger here. We don't even have sheriffs. I shouldn't even say that because everybody's going to come here to rob us. But anyway, people don't even have the consciousness that we need to have some kind of social support system. But anyway, you know, it's sad. That child who is neglected and that I want to walk away and not see their problems, that child could end up becoming the maniac who shoots my child in the schoolroom. There's no escape. Oneness is oneness. See, it's real. But there's one more thing I want to say about oneness today. To be an inner revolutionary, we have to feel the pain of those we are fighting against. It's not enough for me to say, oh, ISIS is disgusting, I hate those people, they're horrible, and they're giving all these peace-loving Muslims a bad name. I've got to ask, why? Why are they doing that? It's not enough for me to look at fundamentalist Christians who are extremely narrow-minded and who are persecuting others. I'm not saying every Christian is like this, but there are people who justify, their oppression of other people, and I've got to ask, why? It's not enough for me to be angry at the male hierarchy that has kept women down and oppressed. It seems like forever, unless I'm also willing to ask, why? Because guess what? We are one. See, in the outer revolution, it was about them and us. And I remember that so clearly because I was a social activist when I was a child, when I was coming up. And I was in the anti-war movement, and I was in the ban the bomb movement, I was in the women's movement, racial equality, and all that stuff. And there was always the them. Well, now, in the inner revolution, since we are all one, where the heck did the them go? The them is the us, and the us is the me. I have to feel the pain of the one that I'm fighting against, and I have to understand why. Now, I am not saying that I'm just going to go into, gobbledygook, chocolate cake, and be sweet to everybody. That is not the inner revolution. That is pandering to people. That is trying to be liked. That is trying to play it safe. That is trying to make yourself look like you're a good person. Whatever it is, when you just let things happen and do nothing, that's passivity. That is fear. And that is allowing the perpetrator to go on and continue to hurt not only others, but themselves. So no, it does not mean that we stop holding people accountable. In fact, isn't our second point accountability? We have to hold others accountable. We have to be accountable ourselves. But we don't hold people accountable in a them-us way. Sometimes we have to actually stop someone. Somebody walks into my house and points a gun at my head and is ready to shoot because they're crazy. If I have a way to stop them, I will. Because God said to me, you create as much negative karma in the universe if you let someone abuse you as if you abuse someone else. So yes, we have to use whatever amount of force we need to stop people from hurting anybody, hurting the child. Sometimes you have to take the child out of the home. Hurting women, throwing acid in the faces of women who are just trying to go to school or be people. I mean, we have to stop this madness and this pain and this destructiveness and this hurtfulness that's based on separation, that the person who is flinging the acid is not feeling the pain, not letting themselves feel the pain of the people that they're hurting. You see, without that oneness, we'll never stop this infliction of pain that we go through on one another. We pretend that we don't feel it. We shut ourselves down. We do everything we can to not feel it, but we do. But once we have taken a stand, that is not enough. We have to take a stand for understanding, for awareness, for trying to understand what is going on with people, for offering people healing. It's not enough to throw people in prison for being lost gang members who don't know what else to do with their creativity. We need healing. Those kids need to heal from the traumas they've lived through. Those kids need something in their life that's going to give them validation other than killing one another or showing off like the big macho guy. I have got to understand and have compassion for men, even though they have raped me. Because I need to understand why. So I can be part of the inner revolution, where we all come together. And I beg you to think about why, not just condemn. I beg you to come together with those people that you think are your enemy and talk about it and try to understand one another. I ask all of us to start wherever we are, in our homes, in our businesses, in our social groups, wherever we are, whether we're teenagers or children or old people. and start talking about how we are one and thinking from that perspective and thinking about what is my accountability here and who have I hurt and how can I make amends, and start thinking about the world as one and that we need to support each other because there's too much pain. And if we don't come together to change it, it will never stop. So please join me in the Inner Revolution. Come to the innerrevolution.org, which is my website. Listen to my radio show where we talk about the Inner Revolution every week and how it's happening. And people come on and talk about what they're doing, and it's so exciting. It's on voiceamerica.com, Inside Out, the Inner Revolution. Listen to my videos, read my blogs, talk to each other. Start taking a stand wherever you are. See your part in the Inner Revolution. I know you have one. Thank you.